Hey, we're live! Good morning, guys. Good morning. Nice to see everybody again. Well, I'm trying a couple of different things today. You can see my face is really big here now. I'm experimenting with a couple of different camera angles. I want this to look more like a TV show. And so I got a couple of cool things lined up here. I'm wearing my earbuds, but the problem is that my voice seems really loud all of a sudden. I think because I've plugged up my ears. I'm not sure whether I'm really going to like this. I might go back to headphones tomorrow. Okay, I got something really cool to show you guys. Are you ready for it? Are you ready? Okay, here we go. Watch this. Check this out. How do you like that? Let me know in the chat. That's called a stinger. And it's basically the kind of thing that they use in a TV news broadcast to try and add a little bit of excitement between scenes and stuff like that. So every time I switch from one scene to another in my OBS player, let me try that again here. So watch this. Here we go. And then I switch to a different scene. I think that's really cool anyway. I don't know what you guys think, so let me know. Well, good morning to everyone. Happy birthday to Aiden's dog. It's apparently Aiden's dog's birthday today. Congratulations. Let us know what your dog's name is, Aiden. He's off screen right now, but hopefully at some point he'll be able to know it. Gamer Davies on. He says he really likes my transition scene. I'm going to do that one more time just for fun. Here we go, guys. Ready? How cool is that? Okay. Priya likes it too. He says, well, that was new and cool. Yeah, I just really like doing cool graphic stuff like that. This software that I'm using called Streamlabs OBS, it's like a little miniature TV studio right in your computer, and it allows you to do some amazing stuff. And I'm just every couple of days when I have a little bit of time, I start looking at tutorials on YouTube and find out a little bit more about how this stuff works. And super excited about it anyway. Eric says it's awesome as well. I agree. So who's online with us today? We got Eric, Abby's here, Priyan's here, Salima's here, Aiden was here and is gone. Of course, my trusty wing person Maya is here, and I think that's everyone I see for now anyway. So really excited. We published another video this morning at 9 a.m. and I'm pretty happy with it. We cut the whole hour session down to a half an hour, and that's kind of what I was talking about, right? Some people don't want to sit through that half hour of you and me talking and me reading the chat and all that stuff. So if you're finding that a little bit annoying, then yeah, absolutely go ahead and log into the second the edited performance, which is released at 9 o'clock every morning, basically. And we'll be doing the same with today's thing. People watching this at home on the finished stream won't be seeing any of this stuff. They'll just be seeing nothing but hardcore scratch coding, which is what some people really want. Watermelons in Minecraft, a new user. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself in the chat. Supreme Scooting is here as well. So these are some new faces we're seeing on the broadcast, and happy to hear a little bit more about yourself. Write a little bit of a description. Where are you from, and how did you get here? And if you've ever done a coding class with me or something like that, you can mention that too. So just leave us something in the YouTube chat, and I'll give you a little shout out on the air. Watermelon and Supreme Scooting. Okay, I think we're ready to go here. We don't have any remixes to show today. There's at least one new item in the student showcase, and I'll show that to you guys in a little bit. But it's going to be more of a meat and potatoes coding session today, and I think we're pretty much ready to go with that. And there's another new face here. James Sedgwick is here. Hi, James. So I know that sometimes people use different names because they're using their parents' account. So if that's not your real name, James, just let us know, and we'll make sure to try and remember to use your real name on the stream. So all the new people who are on here, it looks like we got some great new people here, and that's fantastic. Maya's been doing some marketing and outreach, and she's been doing a fantastic job. So I think some new people are hearing about our stream and are excited to join. Unfortunately, we're in the middle of a project right now, but you'll be able to get started right away as well. I'm going to go ahead and paste the address into the stream for the working file. So anyone who's new here and doesn't understand what's going on, what we're going to be doing is I am going to every once in a while save the file that I'm working on, so that if you came in the middle, like all of you are if you're in part 3 of the session, and you'll be able to keep coding here as you go. A lot of the people who so I've just pasted that into the chat here in YouTube, so anyone who's following along can load up the file and get started right away on what we're working on here. So a lot of people who watch this broadcast are telling me that they're not actually doing the coding while the show is on. They're just watching it happen, and then maybe they might go and look at the documentation. There's always a PDF version of the file that we're working on online here, or they might watch the video later on and then pause it during the important parts, right? So to me, it's not so important that you build the project as much as that you understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Every time I add a new block, I tell you why I'm doing it, and that's where the real learning happens inside Scratch. So when you're sitting here watching me coding, don't be so worried about getting every block down. And if you ever get stuck, I'm just going to save my file. I'll just do a little file save here, and then everything that I've done up until now will be reachable. You just have to reload the page with the original URL that I gave you, and that'll bring you back to where we were. Okay, if there's nothing else in the chat, I think we're ready to go here. So James is from England as well. Fantastic, James. That's great. And Watermelons in Minecraft is from England as well. I think I might have more. I think there's more kids here from England than there are from Canada right now. So you kids from Ottawa who are watching this, get off your keisters and tell your friends about this. Get some more Ottawa representation on this. But I'm very, very happy to have some members here from England, and welcome, guys. So let's get started with the lesson then, okay? So just to remind everyone, since we're doing a new format here, so I'm going to be recording this next little bit of the video without any interruptions, which means there might still be people talking in chat, and I've got some friends here on stage with me as well. I see in Discord I've got Avi, Ben, Kian, and of course my wing person Maya is here as well. They're gonna every once in a while say something, but not during the broadcast here. So I'm going to tape this part of the show, and then after that you guys can all chat, and I'll be looking over what you guys have said in the chat, and Maya's keeping her eye on that as well, and we can hear from the people on stage as well. So with that said, I'm gonna start my actual show part of the program here. You guys are my studio audience, so I'm ready to start filming. Okay, so I'm just going to say the A word, action, and then I'm going to get started. Okay, ready? Action! Well, welcome back, boys and girls. So I hope you all had a nice weekend. We're in the middle of our Frogger project here, and we're on part 3. So just to remind you guys what we were working on last week in parts 1 and 2, we got our little frog moving across the screen here. Let me show you what we've actually coded so far. So I'm going to click the green flag and get started here. So we have a frog that moves across the screen. He doesn't actually listen to my keyboard commands. Whenever you hit the up-down button, you're actually just changing a variable. Let me get killed here. Oh, got killed. So we change a variable, and that variable controls whether you can jump or not. It's a little tricky in this game because we don't have totally free movement. We're actually moving on a grid network that moves you across. So every time I move up or down or left or right, I always end up with the same XY coordinates. And that's important in a game like Frogger, because you want to be able to make sure that you jump right between one lane of traffic and another. If you landed in between 2 lanes, you might get hit by both cars, and that would make it really difficult and unpleasant. Notice I'm just dodging these cars, and that's because the collision that's happening between me and the frog is actually a little tiny dot that we've set up. There's a little sprite in here that's called Frog Collider, and it's just a little dot inside my screen here, and that is what the cars will collide with. And the reason for that is we want to be able to slip away from these cars and sometimes just get out from underneath them before they schmuck us. So they have to actually hit us in the middle of our body in order to kill us. So we got the cars running. We set up the black edges of the screen so that whenever we try to leave the screen, we get punished for it by dying. You notice that my lives are at -9 now. And that's because, of course, we haven't set a game over event for the game yet. So we start off the game with 3 lives anyway. Alright, so we're pretty much done with the cars. We're ready to start working on the logs now. And remember, the logs are a little different in Frogger from the cars. The cars we're trying to avoid but the logs are something we're actually trying to land on. So we're going to code these frogs so that when we land on them, we can hitch a little ride on them and go off the screen or go towards the edge of the screen. Of course, you have to jump off the log before it pulls you off the edge of the screen and kills you. So the goal is to get across to the lily pad on the other side of the screen. There's 4 of them we have to fill up, and we're going to start the process of creating those logs right now. So there's a log, a Frogger log sprite on our screen here, and we're going to start coding that. Let me just shrink my master part of the screen here a little bit, and now I'm ready to start coding. Okay, so the logs. What's the first thing we're going to do? We're going to be using clones to make these logs, as we do in video games with most of the items when they're being repeated over and over again. We don't want to have to code each log individually, because that would be really annoying. So we code it once and then tell it to make copies of itself, and then we tell the copies what to do, because there's always one master item that's just doing nothing but creating new things. So that thing has its instructions to basically make a new log, make a new log, make a new log, and then there's a second part of the program that's called when I started the clone, which tells the new logs how to behave. Okay, so let's go grab a green flag. We're going to go to the events, which is usually where we start any stream of code. An event is a little bit like flipping a light switch, right? It's the thing that starts something happening. It's not turning the light, it's not changing the light, it's the thing that changes the light, right? And that's what an event is. So it's a thing that triggers something to happen. The green flag is the one we almost always use, and that's because as soon as we click the green flag, all the different sprites will start working simultaneously. If we just clicked on this green flag, only the stuff down here would work, but there's green flags in the other parts of the program, so we click up here and everything starts in a coordinated way, basically. Okay, so the frog logs, we're going to start them off at the back of the screen, hidden behind the screen. They're going to be hidden in any event, but just to be safe, we're going to move them to the back of the screen. So I'm going to go to my looks menu, which is the second button down here on the left. And from there, you should be able to see a button. If we scroll down towards the bottom of these purple looks things, we're going to find one that's blocks. We're going to find one that says go to front layer. I'm going to drag that in and then change it to say go to back layer. So we're going to send it to the very, very back. And then we're going to tell it to go to the middle of the screen. From there, we're going to be basically, so the first log's going to appear right here. We're going to tell it to jump to the left and start moving right, or jump to the right and start moving left, just with some code tricks here. So first, let's get him set up in his initial position. We'll just get him sent to 0, 0, to the middle of the screen, where he can start to influence things. So let's go to 0, 0. That's under your movement blocks. And we'll tell it to hide. So this guy's sitting in the background controlling stuff, but he's not actually visible. He's like an evil mastermind behind the scenes controlling the movement of all these logs. Okay, now we're going to start creating new logs, and we're going to do it forever. So we don't want to just create a few logs. We want it to keep going for the entirety of the game. So we're going to get a loop out here. We're going to go to our control, which is these orange blocks here. We're going to click on that, and now we've got a whole bunch of choices. And one of them is forever. So we're going to grab this block here that says forever, and I'll drop it down. So notice it's shaped a little bit like a letter C. That means we can put stuff inside it. So what are we going to put inside it? Well, we're going to want new logs to appear every once in a while. So we're going to set a delay for how often it creates new logs. Here under control at the very top, we've got a block here that says wait 1 second, and that will give us our delay. We're going to pop that inside the forever. So all it's doing now is forever waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. We'll get some other stuff in there in a second. We don't want to wait 1 second because it's a little too slow. I'm going to go 0.6 seconds. Now you can play with this setting to get more or fewer logs on the screen. Basically, it's just every 0.66 seconds it will spawn. So basically after 2 seconds, you'll have about 3 logs on the screen. Okay. Now, we have a variable in here. Remember, a variable is just a way of keeping track of numbers inside of a computer programming language, or words as well. So you could use variables to control your lives or your hit points or any number that you're trying to remember. We've got a variable here called lane, And that's looking really like it's set up to go here already. We were already using this lane function inside of the cars, I believe, as well. So we're going to reuse the same variable here to keep track of which lane it is that our logs are in. So you can't actually see lanes here in the water, but there will be 5 different potential tracks that these logs can go on as they're moving. Okay, so every time that we move, we're going to change that lane by 1. So the first log is going to be in lane 1, the next log is going to be in lane 2, etc. So let's go change lane. We want to change the lane. We don't want to tell it be lane 1. You want to be 1 lane more than you were before. So we're going to change lane. So I'm going to grab this variable that says change, and it says can die right now, but we can fix that just by clicking on this little white triangle and going change lane by 1. There we go. And now we want to tell it if we get to the 5th lane and we go to add another lane, we don't want to go to the 6th lane because there is no 6th lane, so we're going to set it back down to 0 again, or to 1 if we get to the 5th lane. So it'll keep cycling between lane 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to tell it what do we do if our lane number gets too high. We did an if statement for that. Remember, an if statement is like an optional command in Scratch. It will only execute what's inside here if what's in the middle here is true. And what do we want to have in here? We want to say if the lane is greater than 5. So let's go grab a greater than block that's under our green operators, which are right over here. Click on that, and you'll see your green operators. And one of them will say greater than, is this one here. Greater than is the one with the wide open mouth of the alligator pointing to the left. Let's pop that into the spot. Now I need to put the word lane in here. Remember, we can't just type the word lane. That doesn't work. So we actually have to find a bubble that says lane. I'm going to go to my variables again. I'm going to find a little bubble that's called lane, and I'm going to drop it in there. So if my lanes are greater than 5, that means I've already put my log into the 5th lane. Now I need it to go back down to 1 again. So or actually down to 0. Sorry. So I'm going to set it. So I'm going to set lanes to 0. And you're going to see as the program runs along here, it's going to cycle between the different numbers. So it starts at 0, changes it to 1. So it'll basically cycle from 1 to 5. Let's have a look at that variable right now, actually. So lane is hidden. I'm just going to click on the little blue check mark beside it here to make it show up on my screen. I don't actually want it to run permanently on my screen here, but I just want to show you how we've set up a little variable here that will keep cycling between 1 and 5 every 0.6 seconds. So click the green flag, and you'll see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it goes back down to 0 again. And so that's what we've done with these if statements. We've just made a little counter that counts from 1 to 5 and then goes back down to 0 again. Make sense? All right. So now we can make a clone of ourselves. So I'm going to tell, so now that we've picked a lane for our object, we're going to tell it to create a copy or make a clone of itself. Those commands are in control here. So I'm going to click on control. And I'm going to grab a block here that says right towards the bottom of control are all your clone commands. I'm going to grab one that says create a clone of myself, and I'm going to pop it right underneath. So it's inside the loop, but at the very, very bottom. Definitely don't put it inside the if statement, or that's going to start messing stuff up for you guys. So make sure your blocks are always put in the correct order that I've given you here. Okay, so now, what do our clones do? We need a new set of commands that tells the logs what to do once they're created. Right now, this block of code is doing nothing but setting up the creation of these guys. They've been born, and now they don't know what to do. They're just sitting there on the same spot as the log that spawned them. So let's go and we're going to scoot over here and create some extra room on the side here. And I'm going to add a new block that says when I start as a clone. It's right there underneath or above create a clone. So let's pop that in there. So when I start as a clone, the first thing we want to do is we're invisible right now because we told our log to be invisible. So we want these clones to be visible. Let's go to our looks menu. And we will find a block towards the bottom here. We're going to scroll down till we get to these little blocks here that say show and hide. Let's go grab the show block and tell it to be visible. And so we've got our log right now set up on the screen. Let me show you where it is. It's at the back of the screen right now. So I'm going to tell it to go to the front. It's invisible, so I'm going to make it visible. I just want you guys to see where it is on the screen right now. So it is in place right now in the first lane of traffic, basically. I'm going to leave this visible for now. Don't do this, or you don't have to do this yourself, and you might find it a little confusing. So it should be hidden right now, but I've actually manually told it to show. As soon as I click the green flag, it'll disappear again. But I just want to show you guys what this looks like. Okay, so now we are going to tell the log to go up to the next lane. Now, I happen to know these lanes are 24 pixels apart. So all we have to do is change the y coordinate, which is how high up or down something is on the screen. And we'll change the y coordinate by 24. Well, not by 24, but by 24 times the number of the lanes. So first lane is going to be 0. Second lane is going to be 24. The third lane is going to be 48, etc. We're just going to keep going up, multiplying by 24 each time, and that'll tell it how high to go on the screen. So we're going to go change lane by. So let's go and grab our variables. We're going to grab a change variable command here. Let me shrink my screen again so that you guys can see better. All right, change the variable, not canned I, but lane. Or no, y. Oh! You know what? I grabbed the wrong command here. I have black and white instructions. I should have seen the colors if I had printed it properly. We're actually going to go change y. Sorry about that, guys. We're going to go to change y. So we're going to grab this little command here that says change y by 10. So that's going to move it up the screen. And we're going to change this by lane times 24. So let's go grab a multiplication symbol under our operators. And here it is, change y by, and now we need to say lane, so I'm going to go grab a lane for my variables. Lane times 24. The numbers you can actually type in there, it's just the variables that you have to pop in using these bubbles. Okay, now we need to flip our logs around depending on what direction they're going to be moving in. So we're using a little coding trick so that we only have to do this once without using any more if statements. We're just going to tell the lane, we're going to tell it to flip around by 180 degrees. This is what we did for the cars as well. So right now our log is facing to the right, and it will start moving to the right when we tell it to. But then when it flips to the other side, we're going to tell it to rotate 180 degrees and start moving forward, which will move it in the opposite direction. So logs that start on the left are going to move to the right, and logs that start on the right are going to move to the left, of course. Okay, so we're going to tell it to turn 180 degrees. So we're going to have these guys constantly flipping back and forth every time we do it. So let's grab a turn right command, which is a second command under motion. Turn 180 degrees. We're going to put some multiplication in here, so we can't write the number yet. Let's go grab an operator, and we'll grab another multiplication sign. So what we actually want to go is 180 degrees. Oh, I grabbed a plus by accident. Sorry, those are a little hard to see. So remember, the multiplication sign looks a little like a star. That's the third one down. Okay, so we're going to say 180 times the number of the lane. And so what this will do is, if you have even numbered lanes, it will, if it's an odd number lane, it will be turned at 180. And if it's an even numbered lane, it'll be turned at 360 or some multiple of 360. And so this will tell it so that each lane will be in a switched off direction. We'll keep flipping them off so that they kind of interlock with each other. They're going one way, then the next lane's going the other way, and then the next lane's going the other way. Kind of like our cars, right? So we've already got our cars moving and doing the same thing. Each one picks its own lane, and then they're moving in opposite directions from each other. And that, of course, makes it a little harder to maneuver past these guys with your frog. Okay, so turn 180 times lane. So we got to go back to our variables and grab the one that says lane. Beautiful. All right. And now we need to, they're still in the middle. Our log is still stuck in the middle of the screen. So we're going to tell it to go off the edge of the screen in the direction that it's facing. So we're going to tell it to go backwards because we actually want it, it's already facing in the direction that's going to move this way. So we want to back it up to just before it's on the screen. The screen's about 360 wide. So we're going to have it go half the distance of that, which is going to take it right off the screen, and then tell it to start moving across the screen. So let's tell it to move. We'll go to motion here. And we'll tell it to move minus 160 steps. Minus 160 steps. There we go. And now we can start the thing moving. So let's go and we'll grab a forever block. So let's go control forever. And inside there, we actually have the blocks that get our things moving. We did a bit of playing around, and we figured out the best speed is about a speed of 1.5 steps. You can adjust that to whatever difficulty level you want. Of course, it's going to be a harder game if your logs are moving faster. So I'm going to go 1.5 steps as the speed that our guys are going to be moving. Let's have a look. I don't know if this will work yet, but let's go have a look on the screen and see what's happening here. Yeah, and our first log, and there we go. Look at that, our log's already moving across the screen. It was that easy, guys. Now you can see that our logs are in the wrong place, right? They should be behind this black screen so that they disappear behind them. They're also stacking up on the edge here. We have to get them to delete themselves. So the few little pieces of housekeeping we're going to have to do to get this working properly. I also want to hide these variables because they're getting in the way on my screen. The only one we really need to see is lives. So I'm going to hide all the other ones. Let's go down to our variables. I'm going to click the check markers beside lane and can die. I really don't care about those things. And lives is the only variable we're going to keep track of here on the screen. There we go. All right, so we're going to move 1.5 steps. We need to tell them to die if they touch the edge. So we're going to grab an if statement. So when it's not an if-else, we're going to use an if-else in a second. This is a mistake I always make. If touching the edge of the screen, so we're going to say sensing. We're going to say touching. So sensing is how we find out about what's happening on the screen, right? We use our senses to touch things, smell things, feel things. And it works the same way in our video in Scratch in particular. They set up this idea that if you want to find out about stuff, you use your senses. So our senses here, we're going to grab one that says touching mouse pointer. We don't actually want it to say touching mouse pointer, though. We want it to say touching edge. So I'm going to hold down this little white option box. I'm going to find the one that says edge. And I'm going to tell it when it touches the edge. Let's go to our control blocks. And we'll grab the very bottom one that says delete this clone. That'll get rid of our log and stop them from piling up on the edge. Eventually, Scratch will crash if you don't delete your clones. There's a limit to the number of clones you can use. And if you have too many of them, things will slow down dramatically and it will not be pretty. Okay, the other thing we have to do is move these logs to the back, eh? So they've already, I thought we set them up originally to be at the back. And I'm not quite sure why. So let's, when I started the clone, we told them to go to the front layer, eh? Did we? Is that in my documentation here? Turn 180 degrees. Am I inside my log here? Change. I don't remember adding a go to front layer here. Go. Okay, so we weren't actually supposed to have them go to the front, right? They're at the back. We can tell them to go forward, right? Well, let's tell them to go to the front and then go back one layer. Maybe that's one way to solve the problem. So I'm going to go to my looks command. And I'm going to tell my logs to go back. So I'm going to say go. I'm going to grab this one that says go forward in the looks commands here. I'm going to put it right underneath go to front. I don't even remember adding that front. I'm on autopilot today. So we're going to say go backwards. Let's say 2 layers and see if that fixes it. If that doesn't work, we'll just keep upping that number until our logs disappear behind the black screen. So there's our logs. Yeah, and they're already hidden now. Perfect. So now we only see our logs when they're moving across the screen. Now notice that nothing actually happens. We still can't ride these logs. When I try, I go underneath it and nothing really happens. And also the water's not killing me. So in a minute, we're going to deal with the extra code that it takes to actually make these logs rideable. So that's going to be our next thing. And we're going to cut the film here and go back to our group. So James here says he's from Ontario, not from England. We got confused here. What else has happened in the chat, Maya? Anything interesting? Oh, where is Maya? She's gone. Oh, there she is.
Nope, I'm right here. Yeah, so we were all talking about where we were from. And then also, James wishes us, as well as Kian wishes us, a happy May the 4th.
Yeah, so it's May the 4th today. So the last couple of years, that's traditionally become Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. It's kind of a silly thing. I didn't have a chance to do... Pardon me?
Mr. T, on Discord?
Yes?
Your stream is like frozen.
Really? Okay. It could be because I'm not maximized here. Let me try maximizing my screen. Has it been frozen all along or just now? Okay.
Frozen since like 11:20.
Is it back now?
I can only see your game running.
Yeah, and that's what you should see right now because I've got it maximized. Now you can see my code, right?
Now I can see it.
Okay, so we're all back again. It seems like whenever I minimize my screen or make it or unmaximize it, that's when Discord kicks out for some reason. It really doesn't like anything that's not a full screen application. Discord was made for gaming, right? And so most games use full screen mode, and I think that's what it wants to do, is trying to protect my privacy so that people can't see all the stuff on my desktop, probably. Anyway, but that's a little bit annoying because every once in a while I need to like copy paste my URL or something and I get out of my Mac screen and that's going to mess you guys up. All right, we're just learning, guys. We're figuring this out as we go along here.
Can you save your file?
Yeah, I'll do that right now.
Mr. T?
Yes, Maya?
Frida says that in his Frogger game, water doesn't kill you. Watermelon said the logs aren't working, and Salima also says that the logs aren't working.
Okay, so my code works here, right? You can see on my screen that the game is actually running, so you must have forgotten a step. Now, if I was in a classroom with you guys, I would be looking at your code and trying to figure out which block you forgot, right? But we're doing a TV show rather than a classroom right now, and so I don't think I'm going to be able to fix this problem for you guys remotely. What you can do, though, is have another look at my code. So the part that makes the... so, first of all, you got to figure out, are your logs being created or not, right? So you're creating a clone of yourself every 6 seconds. Is that lane variable going up or down is the first thing you should check, right? Are you actually making the lanes go from 1 to 5? If that's happening and you're creating a clone, then probably the mistake is in here somewhere, right? Maybe you might have messed up the if statement. Like if you had something like this, for example, look what happens. Your logs disappear because it's not checking to see if you're touching the edge. It's just as soon as they're being created, you're deleting them, right? It's not checking the if statement. So that's another thing that could go wrong when you're coding this. Often the problems we're having are inside if statements and stuff. So this is the key part of the code that if anyone messed up. So as always, though, if you're having trouble, I've already saved the file with all the changes in it. All you have to do is use the version of the file that is saved here in chat, and that will get you back to where you started from. So I wish I had time to look at everybody's screen and help them figure out individually what would happen, and that's why you have to come to my classroom someday, and I'll teach you guys in person. Okay, so anything else happening in chat? Are we good to keep going here, guys? Oh, I did want to, we were talking about May 4th. I wanted to tell you about one other thing, and Peter alerted me to this. So May is also a very special month for Scratch lovers because there used to be a Scratch Day on Scratch's birthday, which I believe was in May. And this year they decided to extend it out to the whole month. So May is now officially Scratch Month. And the people over at MIT who developed Scratch have all kinds of cool events and stuff coming up. I'll be letting you know about them as they happen. But the first thing is this little project that you guys can share. And let me paste the URL for this for you guys in case anyone else wants to join in and have a look at it. So this is the Scratch month. And I'm going to paste that into the chat here if anyone else wants to have a look at it. And so they've invited you to participate by putting a picture of yourself inside a Scratch project here and making yourself dance. Let me run the project and I'll show you guys what it looks like. And you have to click on it to advance it forward. This year, to celebrate Scratch's birthday, we are going beyond Scratch Day. We will be celebrating throughout the entire month of May. Each week we'll be sharing new activities you can participate in. The first activity starts today. Join me in getting ready for the start of Scratch Month. Add yourself dancing with me in anticipation. So here's the file. It's Scratch dancing and celebrating, and you're supposed to put a sprite of yourself here and insert yourself into this dance and then remix it and add it to a studio so that everyone else can see a picture of you dancing to celebrate Scratch Day. So if anyone else wants to do that, you can share that with the guys over at MIT, or if you do one for me and share it in the student showcase, then that will be cool as well. I'd really love to share any of these Scratch dance files you're interested in. Pay attention to the fact as well that there's lots of sprites in here of Scratch. We always like using Scratch in our projects because he's kind of the mascot of Scratch, and notice that we've got some really cool sprites here that we can repurpose for other projects. So here's Scratch in his party hat celebrating. Like, I would save this as if I was you guys and maybe use it in a different project. Here's another one of him. These are all just pictures of him against different backgrounds. Oh, this is how the background kind of floats in. I know there was one other version of Scratch here somewhere, right? Like this version here in the thumbnail. Doesn't he move his arms around and animate himself here? Let's look at this again. Yeah! So what's going on here? I don't actually see an animation in the thumbnail here. Is it in the backdrop? No. And how did they pull that off? Oh, it's inside this part here. Okay, so here's the intro. And so there's a couple of animations here of Scratch that you can use. You can actually grab these, move them around, and change them. So if you want some additional animations of Scratch doing some cool stuff, you can steal them from this site and use them in your own project, which is pretty cool, I think. Alright, so Frida says he's interested in doing a Scratch dance, but of course he doesn't want to use a picture of himself. Frida's face will remain a mystery, but you know that you can draw a cartoon version of yourself. I'm going to be showing you guys in a little while at some point during a future lesson how to do an avatar of yourself, like in a program like Bitmoji, and then import that into Scratch so that you can animate your own cartoon version of your body doing stuff. I think that's really cool, and I'm going to be doing a little bit more of that in the future, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so I think we're ready to start coding. So the next part of the lesson is going to be getting our guy to ride the logs. We're actually going to do that inside of the frog rather than inside of the log. So there is a little bit more code we have to do inside the log to get it working. And then we're going to switch over to the frog and we'll add the code there that lets them ride the frog. Okay, so let's get on to that right now. Is everyone good? Are we good to go? Looks like we are. Okay, so let's get back to our code here. Oh, I'm in the wrong project. That's no good. All right, back to my log here. And okay, and so we have an if statement here. This is, oh, no, the if statement. This is the one we're going to be influencing here. Okay, so we're in the right spot here. Okay, ready for action here? Okay, I'm going to switch back to my cool full face effect here. Haha, I still love that. Okay, ready? Action! Okay guys, so now we've got the logs moving properly. Now we need to be able to hitch a ride on them. And so the next step is we're going to add a little bit of code that's going to figure out which direction the log is moving and tell it that if you're touching that log, that you have to start moving along with it, basically. So I'll go through this step by step. It's going to involve making changes to the log sprite, but also to the frog sprite. So we're going to do a little bit of work in both of those things. We ready to go? All right. Love that new transition. What do you guys think of that? All right, so we're still inside our frog. We're inside the when I created the clone part. We've just created this if statement here that deletes our logs just in case things are touching. And so that whenever they touch the edge, they delete themselves. And now we're going to add another if statement inside of that one. So we're going to, or sorry, not inside of it, underneath it. So the placement of this is going to be really, really important, guys. I'm going to grab an if statement here, and I'm going to put it inside the loop, but underneath the other one. Do not accidentally plunk it inside the other if statement, or you're going to create a mess for yourself, and your program will not work. I was just talking to some people during the break who were having a little bit of trouble with the code, and it looks like they probably put an if statement in the wrong place as well. Okay, so now we're not interested with whether the frog is writing the log, but that frog collider, this little dot here, is the thing that we're going to check and see if it's touching a log. So the reason for that, again, is we want to make sure that we're just not brushing against the edge of it, that we're actually touching it. So we created this tiny little sprite that keeps track of what the frog is touching and what he's not. Okay, so we're going to say if touching the frog collider, we need our senses for that. So let's go over to our blue senses block here. And we're going to say touching, if touching frog collider. There we go. Then we need now here's where we need an if statement here. So we're going to say if we're touching, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check and see whether the log is moving left or moving right. And depending on which direction we're moving in, we'll have different instructions for it. So instead of going if it's moving left and then having it do something and then going if it's moving right and having it do something else, we're going to put those both into the same command structure. And that's what one of these if-else commands is like. So an if statement is an optional statement that only gets checks for one thing. What an if-else statement does, and we're going to put that inside the first if statement. So now we have this thing where one if statement's inside another. It'll check for this, and then if it passes its first test, it's going to check this. And if it fails this test, it's going to automatically do what's in else. If it passes the test, it's going to do what's in here and skip what's in else. So you're basically creating a branch in your program where you can go off in one direction, go left down the road or go right down the road. An if statement is more like go forward or don't go forward. There's only really one direction you can move in, and so it's like an optional side road. So I'm driving down the main highway, and if I want to turn off onto a side road, I can turn off. Otherwise, it'll just ignore that and it'll keep driving straight. Whereas an if-else statement is, I'm reaching a branch in the road and I have to make a decision. Am I going to turn left or turn right, basically? Okay, so I'm going to say if I'm facing to the right, which means my direction is equal to 90. So let's grab an equal sign from our operators right there. And remember, the equal sign is right here under the greater than less than sign. So if my direction, where do I find my direction? That's a movement block, and it's a little bubble like the other ones. We don't use this one very often. Let's have a look at our direction here. So it's right the very last block in the movement blocks, right down here, direction. So anytime you want to know what a block is thinking, remember that we can click on it and it will report back whatever information is being stored in it. So the clone that we're looking at right now, is it moving to the right or to the left? We can tell by clicking on it. And yeah, this one's moving to the right. It's reporting back 90. So it's basically, we're saying if direction equals 90, and that is true. So it is going to do whatever's inside here. What's inside there? We change our log ride speed. We're going to change a variable. We can't control the frog from here. What we're going to do is tell the frog to start moving at the same speed as the log, which means every turn, in addition to whatever other movement he's doing, he's going to slide 1.5 pixels to the left or to the right, depending on what direction we're moving. So we're going to set that variable, and then we're going to have the frog read that variable and change its movement accordingly. So let's go grab a set command here, set. We're going to set the log ride speed. We're not changing it this time, right? We're actually telling it you must be this number. We're going to set it to 1.5, positive 1.5. Otherwise, so if we're not moving 90, the only other way we could be moving is minus 90, or 270 is the same as minus 90, and we'll tell it. So I could grab another set from here, but I'm actually going to make a copy of this. I'm going to right-click and go duplicate, and that'll save me a second of precious time. and I'll put it into the else command here. So if that's not true and we're moving the opposite direction, we're going to tell it to move minus 1.5. Okay, so no need to test our game yet because nothing has really changed. We need to program our frog now to tell it what to do when it gets into that circumstance. So let's go back to our frog code. So I've clicked on my frog. There's a whole bunch of code here, most of which we did on day 1 of the project. We're interested in this part here that says spawn frog, okay? So here's the part where it takes keyboard inputs and moves. But before we allow it to move with our keyboard inputs, the first thing we're going to do is check and see whether the log is carrying us somewhere. So that if we move first and then figured out what the log did to us, everything would get a little out of alignment. So we want to make sure we got our log movement taken care of before the other stuff is looked at. And so we need another if statement, but we're going to put it above these other if statements. We've got a very complex set of if statements here, and I want to make sure mine goes in front. This is going to be tricky, guys. So be very careful. If you put this in the wrong place, it's going to be very difficult to take apart. So do not let go until you're 100% sure you're in the right place. I'm grabbing it. I'm holding on for dear life to this, and notice that it's trying to put itself into different places, right? It's trying to wrap itself around the other if statement. I don't want that. And in fact, I don't even think I can get it into the proper space. I want it above the other if statements. So I think the safest thing to do is to do it manually. I'm going to drag it right beside my code here. And then you know that any block of code that you want to pick up will pick up anything underneath it or attached to it, basically. So I want this forever to stay here, but I want all the rest of this to go to the bottom of this if statement. So I'm going to grab it from the top, right from this corner here where the word if is. Look carefully where I'm dragging from. I'm going to click here and then drag it down below the other one. So I think if I tried to do it the other way, there was almost no real way I could have done that. So this looks like the best strategy here. And then now I can pop that all back into the forever, and I'm all set up to go here. Okay, so am I in the right place in my code here? So we're inside spawn frog. Yeah, here we go. Oh, this is the part that actually I am coding the wrong part here, but let's keep going with this since we're into this. So this is the part that kills you if you fall in the water if you're not touching a log. Okay, we're going to add that right now. And then after that, we'll do the part where you're actually sliding on the log. So sorry about that. I misinterpreted the code here, but no big harm done. So we need a big, complicated if statement here, and we're going to start building it, basically. So we're going to start checking a bunch of stuff here. We're going to see if I'm not moving. So how are we going to know we're in the water is the question, right? If I'm writing in a log, then you know for sure that we're not dead. So how do we know we're not riding on a log? Well, first of all, we're going to know our log ride speed. If we're on a log, it's going to be 1.5. If it's 0, that means we're not riding on a log. Also, we need to know that we are in the water. Now, we could have it detect color, but instead we're just going to use y coordinates. We're going to tell it when your y coordinate reaches above this level, above this line here, then you're in the water. And if you're below this line here, you're also in the water. So it's going to figure out that you're between these two lines, and then it's going to determine you're on the water. So if you're not moving and your y position is between these 2 points, then you must be in the water. Also, we're going to check and see if you're jumping or not, because if you're jumping, then that doesn't count anymore, right? You're in the air until you land, and again, you can't die. So there's 4 things we have to check, and we're going to do it all inside one big complicated if statement. So bear with me here, it's going to be a little bit complex. I'm just going to take this dead and move it out of the way because I expect this block to go all the way across the screen here like this, and I'm trying to make room for it here. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit, though I might have to zoom out later because I'm going to put a lot of code in here. So we need basically to check for 4 things, which means we need 3 different ands in here. If this and this and this and this are true. So let's set that up first. Let's go to our operators, and we're going to grab an and statement. Notice there's only 2 spots in the and statement, which means we have to expand it by adding other ands. So I'm going to grab an and put it into the right-hand hole. Now I've got 3 different conditions, and then I'm going to grab another one and grab the 4th one. So now I have 4 different things it's checking, and if all of those are true, then it's going to kill us when we're in the water. Okay, So what are the things we have to check? Let's check our log ride speed is equal to 0. So I'm going to grab this equal sign, pop it into the first hole, change that number to 0, and we're going to go to our variables and find the one that says log ride speed and pop that into the hole. Okay, that's our first part taken care of. Hope you guys are following me. The second part is we're checking our y speed. So we want our y position to find out whether we're in the right spot. So I've already taken the liberty of figuring out what these y coordinates are. They're -8 for the first one. So if we're over -8, then we are definitely in the water. So let's go and grab a greater than sign. And I'm going to pop it into that first hole. And we're going to say our y position. So let's go back to our motion blocks. We'll grab the one here right above direction that says y position. And we're going to need another one. So I'm just going to pull another one out while we're here, and I'll just leave it on the side. I'm going to need that in a second anyway. And so I don't have to go looking for it. So if y position is greater than -8, and we need a less than sign next, so let's go back to our operators. We're going to grab the opposite sign here, which is our less than sign. Remember, it's this one here with the arrow kind of pointing to the left and the alligator's jaws pointing to the right. And I'm going to pop that into that hole. So if you drop this into the right spot, by the way, be very careful, because if I drop this in the middle, you might see that sometimes the entire AND statement glows like that. If I drop this now, it will get rid of the AND statement, chuck it out of the program, and put this one in its place. We don't want to replace it. We want to add to it. So we want to make sure just that one slot is glowing. Okay, and now we need to say y position is less than, and the second number we're looking for is 116, 116. And the third thing we need here is we need to check that our jump is equal to 0. So let's grab an equal to sign. And we will go jump. Let's go to our variables. If a jump is equal to 0. So super complicated bit of code, guys. But you can really see we're just checking a bunch of stuff. Am I between here and here? Am I jumping? And am I writing a log? If all of those are not true, then we can kill ourselves, basically. So inside here, we need to make the sound of us falling into the water. So let's go grab our sound. We're going to go to sound, and we're going to start a sound. And I'm not going to put that in there because I want to play that sound for you. I'm going to go Frogger Plunk, and that is a sound of you falling into the water. It's an old-fashioned video game sound. If you want to replace that with the sound of a real splash and bring your game into the 21st century, you're welcome to do that. But I'm going to keep the old retro game sound. And then we're going to broadcast our death. So we're going to say broadcast a message. Remember, broadcasts are the way that we tell one sprite what to do using another sprite, basically. So we're going to send out a message that everything in Scratch will be able to hear that basically says, I'm dead, what do I do now? And all kinds of stuff is going to happen then. Everything's going to reset itself, and we're going to take a life away. We already programmed that during our last session, so we don't have to do that right now. Okay, so now we should be able to die when we enter the water, as long as we're not touching a log. So let's give that a try. We're still not able to ride the logs, though, but let's give this a try. First, I have to make it across the highway alive. Ah! Okay, here we go. Good. Now, first I'm going to try riding on a log. Whoa, and it killed me. Oh, no, it didn't kill me. Hold it. I am not dying here, eh? So there might be an error in my code, or it might be something that I haven't done yet, because I still have a little bit more coding to do. Let's put a pin in that for now, and we'll finish coding the part where the frog moves, and that is the spot where we're changing our log ride speed, and that's probably the part that's stopping us from dying here right now. There's only a couple of extra lines of code to add here, so we're going to go back to our spawn frog code, which is the same block of code we were already working on when we added this long thing, but we're going to go right to the bottom here after we've jumped. Now we got to place this in the proper place. What we're going to put 2 blocks down here. We're going to put them in the spot right underneath the last forever statement, but outside of all these if statements. So right along this line here, if you're watching me at home, and that's the spot we're going to add some blocks. The first one is going to be, we're going to change our x by log ride speed. So let's go into our motion blocks. We'll change x, and remember I'm going to put it right into that spot by the speed that we're writing the log. It could be a positive number or a negative number depending on what we did here. Log ride speed. And then we're going to set the log ride speed back to 0 again, and that's going to reinitialize it so that we can go through the whole process again. So basically, it evaluates that every time it goes through a new movement cycle, it resets that back to 0 again, it decides whether you're going to jump or not, it does the collision detection, and then it moves you along the log one more time. So it's only during that one period when you're mobile on the log that you're considered to be riding it by the script. Otherwise, it sets it right back to 0 again. So let's set that log ride speed. Let's go back to our variable, set a variable, pop it underneath, and change that to log ride speed. And we'll set that back to 0. Okay, so I think our code's going to work right now, but let's give it a try. We'll click the green flag and play our game a little bit more. Make it across the highway alive. Now, let's see if that works. Oh, it works, except I'm underneath the log. Let's try jumping in the water, and I died. Beautiful. So it looks like everything's working properly here. It's just our stacking order is a little messed up here. So let's tell our frog to go to the front, and that will probably solve all our problems. So let's go back to the top of our frog when he starts. Let's tell him to go to front. So we'll go to our look menu. No matter what happens, your frog's always going to be the front layer. So we just have to keep telling it, go to the front, and everything else can go behind it. Because, of course, our frog has to always be at the front. Let's try playing one more time. Green flag. Cross the highway alive. Jump on a log. Whoa, and there it goes. I fell in the water. It's working exactly the way I expected it to. Jump on a log. Jump on a log, jump on a log, jump on a log. Oh. Now, I have to be careful. Oh. Now, you can see that I'm allowed to jump here. And that's something we're going to have to control, because you should only be able to get off at the spot where there's a hole to go into. And so we need some lily pads here that we can jump on, and we need something else here to stop us from jumping on, because that's a cheat. We want to be able to only jump into the lily pad. It's a matter of timing yourself. When you jump off the log, you have to get off at the exact right spot. Okay, so we're getting close here, guys. We just got a few more things to do. I see that it's 10:58. We're going to be back at this for about 10 minutes or so. I'm just going to cut the film here right now, and we're going to pick it up again in a second. How's the chat going, Maya?
It's been pretty uneventful.
Okay, good. All right, you guys liking this file? I like our old arcade games. It's really fun to put together. Have you played any of these games, Maya?
You mean the ones you've made?
Yeah, like these old arcade games that we've been making. Like, these are games from when I was a kid, and so I'm a little nostalgic for them. But of course, they would have been museum pieces before you were born. Have you played any of them? Or
I've played some. One of my friends has one of the Galaga machines at his house.
An actual full arcade machine that you put quarters into?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome! Wow, that's a lot of fun. Does he make you pay to play? Or she, or whoever your friend is?
They have a broken thing, so the quarters just keep.
Oh, a coin on the string, or no, it just comes out and then you just plunk it back in again. Oh, that's cool. Does it cost a quarter?
Yeah, it costs a quarter.
Okay.
Also, the chat was just wondering if you would mind saving
your file. Yeah, sorry, that's a good thing to do now. Okay. How are you guys finding this? So I'm a little less distracted. I'm doing a lot more teaching here, but I'm hoping you guys still are following along and finding this interesting. I'm sorry that I don't get a chance to get quite as much feedback from you guys while I'm teaching, but I think this is working well now. So Salima says that she's not dying. Again, it's probably one of those if statements being in the wrong place. What I would do is just save your file and compare what you did to the code that I've done. So for now, Salima, just open up my version of the file, save yours, and just change the name to say broken version or something like that. And then you can go back. I would really love it if you could figure out what you did wrong, so that you can make it fit the next time. I know that if you follow my instructions, there's a 100% chance that your code is going to work properly. So one of the blocks that I put in my code, you put in the wrong place or you forgot to put in, and that's what's going on there. So, Aiden says he doesn't like the new format. Okay, well, tell us a little bit about why, if you really feel that strongly about it. All right, I'm going to switch back to the other view here. That's my favorite part. All right, so we're going to turn the camera back on again in a second and start filming in the new format. So I'm going to be doing the lily pads next, and we need those blockers. And there's one other thing we have to do, which is to make the Frogger logo appear and disappear depending on whether you won the game, and that's going to be kind of our winning condition as well. I've actually created some costumes that say you win and you lost. So Frida's leaving, as always, at 11 o'clock. You are a very punctual lad, Frida, so that's great. No problems at all. You know that you can watch the short version of this tomorrow morning at 9, or you can just pick up where you left off. This live version will be available on YouTube almost immediately after we're done here. Okay, so 3 more little bits to code here, and then we'll be done the game, guys. So I'm just going to blast through here because I don't want to do a part 4, and there's not really enough code. So I'm predicting about 10 minutes or so before we're done, okay? Are we ready to go? Okay. All right, guys, so we made our logs work. We can hitch a ride on them now properly, and everything should be really good. So now we have to create these lily pads that I was talking about on the screen, and let's go back to our game and have a look at what's going on. All right, so our lily pads are going in these 4 spots here. We're just going to place them using XY coordinates, where we're going to place the first one, then we're going to tell the other ones to spawn a little bit over from the first one using cloning commands. So I'm going to scroll over to my lily pad graphic, and let's start doing some coding. We're running a little over today, so we're going to try and blast through this fairly quickly. Let's start with a green flag. When green flag clicked, we're going to... I have a set score to 0 here. I don't think we've actually been keeping track of score here at all. Oh yeah, the score is so you don't actually score in this game. The idea of score here is that how many lily pads did you get across? How many times did you successfully cross the highway? So after you complete all 4 of those lily pads, then the game's going to end. You could set it up for multiple levels if you wanted to, so that the variables changed and something else happened, even a totally different configuration of lily pads or road or whatever for level 2, and you'd have to do a bit of fancy coding to make that happen. So we're going to keep this game 1 level, and if you get all 4 lily pads, you're done. So let's so that score is how we're going to keep track of how many lily pads we've successfully landed on. So let's go and set that score to 0. Let's go variables, set score to 0. And then we're going to tell it to go back 1 layer. So we don't want the frog to land on top underneath the lily pad. So we're going to tell it to go backwards, and that'll make sure that our lily pad, so we're going to say go backward instead of forward, go backward 1 layer, and that should put the lily pad behind the frog. Then we're going to, let's have a look at the costume for our lily pad. So right now we have a costume. It doesn't look very realistic at this magnification, but if you shrunk it a little bit, you'd see that it looks pretty good. So we've got one version with no frog on it, and the other version with a frog sitting on it. And that's basically the frog graphic that I copy-pasted onto there. So we'll know if you landed on it successfully by the fact that the costume has changed, and that is going to make sure that you don't land on it twice. So if it's wearing this costume, you won't be able to land on it and trigger another score event. So you have to land in all 4 slots to win. Okay, so let's tell it to switch costume to no frog. So I'm going to go to my looks menu here. I'm going to switch costume to pad with no frog. Then I'm going to tell it to go to its start position. So let's go to our motion blocks here. We'll say go to XY. And my X coordinate is going to be minus 84. These are just through some trial and error. I figured out where the pad's supposed to be. And the Y is 143. So that's looking good. Now we're going to make clones of it. So let's tell it to hide. We want the master one to be hidden. That's what we do almost all the time with clones, because you can't interact with the master one usually, because the code's all inside that when I started the clone block. Alright, so now we need to make 4 copies of itself. We only need 4. We don't need them to go forever. So instead of grabbing a forever loop, we're going to grab one of these numbered loops that says repeat 10 times. It's right here at the top of our control blocks. Let's drag that in, change the number to 4. And I'm going to say create a clone of myself. So let's go to control. We'll grab create a clone of myself. And we'll tell it to, after it creates a clone of itself, to shove itself 48 pixels to the right. So let's go to our motion blocks. We'll tell it move 48 pixels. You can also tell it to change its X coordinates by 48 here. That would do exactly the same thing. Move always moves in the direction that you're facing, and by default, all sprites in Scratch start facing to the right. So if you tell it to move, you can guarantee, unless you've told it to go a different direction, it'll always go to the right. And that will create your 4 guys. You won't be able to see them yet because they're hidden, so let's just quickly add a when I started the clone towards the bottom of control here, and we'll tell our clones to show. So let's go looks. We'll grab a little show command. And now let's maximize our screen here. And let's have a look at our game. Let's see what our lily pads look like. There we go. They're all in the right place, but they are the wrong lily pad. They're the ones with the frog on it already. I thought I told it. Oh, I said pad with frog instead of pad no frog. Sorry. I thought it was without rather than with. Okay. So there we go. That should fix that problem. Now our lily pads will be empty. Yeah, now we're waiting for you here. It looks like our stacking order is messed up here again as well. We're going to play with that after the game's done. I'm not too worried about it for right now. Alright, so when I started the clone, we want to show the lily pad. Now, they're basically going to sit there and wait for a frog to touch them. So that's all we have to do now is add a wait command. Uh-oh, Scratch is messing me around here. Hopefully it'll be able to save. Alright, let's go to our control blocks. We're going to grab a wait until command. So a wait until command you can often use kind of the same way that you would use a forever statement with an if inside it. Just keep checking for something until it's true, but this is much more economical with code. So if you want to wait for something to happen and then only one thing happens after it, these wait until commands are really great. So let's tell it wait until it's touching not the frog, but the frog collider, which is that little dot. So we're going to go to our senses. We'll grab a command here that says touching frog collider. There we go. And we're going to, once we touch it, we're going to switch our costume. So let's go to our looks menu. We're going to go switch costume to pad with frog. So we're going to tell it has a frog on it in that one. And then we're going to change our score because we want to tell it that we have landed on a frog, and that's how we're keeping track with our score. So let's go to our variable. We'll go change score by 1. And we're going to tell it to, so that frog is basically gone now. So let's go spawn a brand new frog. So we'll grab our events and grab an event that says broadcast, spawn a new frog, and that will start the whole process over again so that we're back to the beginning of the game again. So let's try and land on a lily pad and see how that works now. Here we go, green flag. Again, those logs are kind of annoying, but we're going to ignore them for now. All right, we're going to hitch a ride on a log, go across to here, across to here, across to here, across to here, and we'll drop ourselves in there, and there we go. And now we have a new frog at the bottom. And you'll notice that if I try to jump in the same hole again, well, you land on it, but it doesn't change your score. And there we go. I went off the edge of the screen, and now I killed myself by doing that, right? So you can see how that works, and it's working pretty nicely now. So that was pretty flawless. Okay, so now we need to create the little part on the screen here that's going to stop you from landing on the little islands between the lily pads. We don't want you to be able to jump there, or it would just make the game too easy. So we're going to create some blockers, basically some blocks that you're not allowed to touch. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go to my blocker, and I've already created that sprite for you here down at the bottom. I painted it green so that it wouldn't look too obvious on the screen. You can see it sitting right here. And we're just going to use a bit of code to get it into the right place. And then we're going to program our frog to know what to do when it touches one of those. So let's go to our blocker. We'll grab a when green flag clicked. And then we'll tell it. Now, in the last lesson, or maybe the one before, we set up a cool trick to make sure that this block would be invisible, but you could still collide with it. As soon as you hide something, you can't collide with it. So we use a little programming trick. We tell it to set its ghost effect to tell it to be 99% transparent. So we're going to go set color. It's under our looks commands here, set color effect to. I'm going to grab that one, put it under the green flag, but I'm going to change it to ghost effect. That is how transparent it is, and we'll change that number to 99. So we won't be able to see it, but the game will be able to see it still because it's not at 100% yet. If you change that number to 100, it will break the game, guaranteed. Okay, so let's get our guy to the first spot. And so we're going to use the same kind of cloning command we used on the lily pad here. Exactly the same, but just with different XY coordinates. So let's go to motion. I'm going to blast through this pretty quickly here. We'll go to XY, and let's put the proper numbers in there. They're going to be minus 107, minus 107, and 147. Same height as before. Then we need to repeat 4 times. So let's go grab our control block. We'll say repeat 4 times. And then we're going to make a clone of ourselves and then move 48 pixels. So we'll go to, control. We're going to grab when I started, create a clone of myself. And then we're going to move 48 steps to get 4 of them into place here. So move 48 steps. Now, we're not going to bother testing the game because you can't actually see these things. They're transparent, but you can trust me that they're in the right places on the screen here right now, and they should stop us from landing. And now we have to go over to the frog and tell him and get him to check and see whether he has landed on these. Now, this is a little bit tricky because we won't know whether we landed on it until we've already jumped, and by the time we've jumped, we've already made the movement. So how do we get it to check before it actually jumps, whether it can jump somewhere? Now we're going to take advantage of the fact that Scratch processes these movement commands really, really quickly. And so we're going to tell it to actually experimentally just teleport over to a spot 24 pixels above us, check and see if we're colliding with anything, and if we are, tell it to not allow that jump, basically. So we're going to pop up, check, and then pop back again. And every time we move our frog, we're going to do that little check. It's going to happen so fast that you're not going to see him, but we're actually going to be. So every time you tell him to jump, he's going to be check your position, go back, and if you're allowed to, jump. But those first 2 commands are going to be so fast that you're not even going to see them on the screen. It's quite magical, actually. Okay, so let's go back to our frog code. We have to add a little bit of code here inside the when green flag clicked. So let's get back to our frog. We're going to get to that big when green flag clicked block. Let me shrink this a little bit so we can find a way around. So we need the block that says when green flag clicked and has a bunch of, this is the if statements for whether you can jump or not. So before we're allowed to jump, here's where we're going to do the test. Again, we're going to put another if statement inside of it, and it's a little bit difficult to do. So we're going to do the trick we did a couple of minutes ago where we grab an if statement. Just like this, and we are going to attach all this stuff down below it and then pop it back in again so that we don't accidentally destroy anything. Okay, so we need to again check for a couple of things. First, we're going to check and see if we're trying to jump. There's no use having this check happen if we're not even trying to jump, because this only affects us if we're jumping. So let's check and see if jump is equal to 1. So let's grab an equal to sign. If jump, let's go grab our jump under variables. if jump is equal to 1, then we're going to jump forward 24 steps really quickly. So we're going to go grab a move 24 steps. So this will move us in whatever direction we're jumping in, though in practice you're only going to hit something if you're moving forward, but we're going to set it up so that no matter what direction you're jumping in, something will happen. And then we did an if statement down below there as well. I think we should be able to put it in there without too much issue. Let's give it a try. So we did an if statement below the move 24, but inside the other if statement. So this spot here, do not let go until you're sure that the if statement is right below the move statement. If you put it in the wrong place, there's a million different wrong places you could put it, and all of them will mess up your code. So it should be right underneath the move 24. So we're going to say if I'm touching the blocker, let's use our senses. So the blocker is the block that we just set up. If I'm touching that blocker when I jump forward, so what did I call it? Blocker here. So if I'm touching the blocker, we're going to tell it you cannot jump. So we're going to go set that variable, set jump to 0. So now when we come down here to evaluate that jump command, it's going to equal 0, which means we're going to hit that jump button and nothing's going to happen because we're not allowed to jump on that block. But before we go ahead and jump, we have to move our guy back to his starting position again. So let's just tell him to jump back. So we told him to hop forward 24 steps, and now he'll hop backwards minus 24 steps. And that will stop us from landing on that thing. We're getting pretty close here, guys. We just need a game over screen, and then we'll be good to go. But first, let's test this. Oh, I schmucked myself on the first try. All right, ride a log, ride a log, ride a log. Now I'm going to... Oh, I did not die there. Okay. Still something going on with the water, eh? Okay, I died there. Maybe my XY coordinates for the water are set up badly. Okay, there's something going on here anyway. Okay, here we go. Riding logs. And I'm going to... Oh. Let's try that again. Up. And then up. Now I'm going to try, and then jump into that hole. So you guys couldn't see that at home, but I was pushing the up button every time I passed one of those islands, and I was unable to land there. So if you coded this properly, that should be working fine. Looks like there might be a few little bugs in this game, but I'm going to have a look at it after this session and see if there's anything that I coded wrong here, because that one time I fell in the water and I didn't die. It might be that my Y coordinates for the top of the water aren't right. I'm going to have to double check those coordinates a little later, and no time to do that on the air. Okay, so the last thing we want to code is our, well, there's two things. First of all, I've avoided doing this because the music's a little bit annoying. Let's get the music going here. So we actually have the Frogger music coded inside the frog here. It's this one here. And so you can decide whether you want to have that music running in your game or not. It can get really annoying after the 100th playthrough of the game, but it does give it a sense of authenticity. So we're just going to tell it, this is how we get the soundtrack going for any game where we want the music going constantly. We just go when green flag clicked, forever, and then tell it to play the sound. Now we can't tell it to, well, let's go to our sound commands. We can't tell it to start the sound, or it'll just start playing the sound. Let me just show you what that sounds like if I try to do that inside here. It'll just start playing the sound over and over again and never get through it. And you see what it's doing there. That is not right. And that is why they made this command called play it until done. And so now it'll play the song through until the end and then loop around and play it again. And now our music's playing nicely. Okay, so let's get over to the game over screen, which is called... Where did it go? Side panel, Frogger, pad. Oh, here it is, Frogger. It's called Frogger logo. Let me show you what it looks like. We'll go to our costume. So we've got the Frogger logo there. Then underneath we've got one that says, it's hard to tell here, but because it's against a transparent background, it's white text. But it's going to say you win, or it says you lose. So depending on what happens in the game here, we're going to either win or lose. So let's do some really quick coding here. Wow, it's 11:20. I totally underestimated the amount of time this would take. So let's go whip through this quickly. Frogger logo, just a few more pieces of code and then we will be done, guys. Okay, so when green flag clicked, let's go under events here. When green flag clicked, switch costume to just the plain old logo. So let's go to our looks. We'll go switch costume to logo with no win or lose on it. We're going to make it disappear by changing its ghost effect. So we're going to go to our looks menu. We're going to grab set color effect and we'll change it to ghost. We'll set ghost effect to 100, which will mean it's totally transparent. And then we're going to undo that slowly to have it fade in at the beginning, at the end of the game. Okay, let's go. One of the cool things about doing it this way is that Frogger logo will be visible on the game when we're not playing. So as soon as I hit stop, you can see that Frogger logo reappears again. And so when people are looking at your game, they'll always see the logo until they're playing the game, basically. Now let's tell it to wait until the score, we could say equals 4, but it's usually safer in code to say greater than a certain number so that in case somehow we give ourselves 2 points at once, we don't overshoot that number 4. So let's go onto our control blocks here. We'll go wait until score is greater than 3. So let's grab a greater than sign. So we want to say equal to 4, but instead we're going to say greater than 3. And we need to put a score in there. Wait until score is greater than 3. And then we're going to broadcast. So if we do that, we're going to send a win message. So let's go broadcast. We'll go to our events. We'll broadcast a win message. And we don't have a win message yet, eh? Hold it. Yeah, we're going to broadcast a win message. So let's type in that. We'll go win. Now I don't know where the win comes back in the code because we're running out of code here. There's no code that actually says when I receive win. Okay, all we're going to do is if we win is make the graphic turn up, and then it's going to stop the frog. So we're just going to tell the frog he can't move anymore if you win or if you lose. Okay, so let's go. We're going to fade in this you win screen. So let's switch the costume to you win. So we'll go under our control blocks. We'll grab a. Hold it. We're waiting until score wins. Well, we're going to broadcast. Now we want to switch our costume. Sorry, I got a little confused there. So let's switch our costume to the winning costume. Logo win. And then we're going to ghost it in. So we're going to have it appear. So we'll just do a loop that goes 10 times. Let's repeat 10 times. Each time we'll decrease that ghost effect by 10. So let's go change ghost effect under looks. Change ghost by -10. That'll start to slowly fade us into the screen. And then lastly, now we need to tell it what happens if we lose. So this is if our lives get down to below a certain level. I believe we've already coded that part that says that if we die a certain number of times, it sends a message. So we just need to tell it what to do if we receive that.
Mr. T.
Yes.
Every time we die or like a car hits us or something,
Mm-hmm.
and my lives they go down by.
They go down by more than 1? Kia?
Yeah, they go down by 8.
Okay, we can have a look at that after I'm finished broadcasting, Key. And again, these are the kind of things we should be talking about without interrupting me on the stream, right? So maybe I need to cut it into smaller blocks so that you guys can have more chances to talk to me, and that's something I'll have to look at. But so I'm going to have to cut this out of the video now, right? Because this is the part that we shouldn't be working on. While I'm interrupting us here, is there anything else anyone else is having trouble with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we added the blocker bit,
Mm-hmm.
the blocker, when I pressed the move arrow,
Yeah.
it would, instead of moving me to 1 lane, it moved me by 2 lanes.
Really? Okay. So we're going to have a look at some of this code later. If anyone wants to stick around, you guys on Discord can broadcast your screen to me, and maybe we can have a look around at the code.
That block out, when I took the block out, it worked perfectly.
Okay, so let's have a look at your code in a second and we'll compare it to our code, but I just want to blast through the rest of this broadcast so that I can put this out. And if anyone wants to stay online a little bit and help to do a bit of bug fixing on this, I'm happy to let the live stream run a little longer, okay? But that part's kind of optional for anyone who wants to stick around a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to blast through the end of the game here. We're just going to do what happens if you lose the game. I don't think there's any more code that has to be added here, just a few more blocks. Yeah, and then we have to add one little thing inside the frog code that stops you if you win the game or lose the game. All right, ready to go here. So, all right, I'm just going to start filming straight from here. We'll just do a slide transition from the one to the other. Okay, ready? Action. Okay, guys, so we've got everything more or less ready to go with this Frogger logo. We just need to tell it what to do if we lose the game, if we run out of lives. So let's go grab a when I receive game over. So right here under our events blocks, we're going to grab a when I receive a broadcast message. We'll call it, so we don't have a game over here yet. So let's go and do a new message that says game over. And then we're going to say when I receive game over, we're going to do the same thing we did before with this stuff here. So actually, I can grab a bunch of this code that's already here. Actually, I'm just going to redo it from the beginning here. So let's go set ghost effect to 100 again. So let's go to our looks menu. We're going to set ghost effect to 100. We're going to switch our costume to lose. So let's go switch costume to logo lose. Then we're going to have it fade in. So let's grab another 10 times repeat loop. And in each one of those, we're going to change that graphic effect. So we'll change ghost effect by -10 here, and that will make it slowly reappear. So you can see what that looks like, guys, inside the code here if we maximize this. So actually, I can't maximize it because I have to play with the code. So I'll just make it a little bit bigger here. So when I receive game over, you'll see that it will be faded out. Let's actually do this part here that will make it invisible. And so this is what it'll look like in the end. It'll fade in like that and tell you that you've lost or tell you that you've won, depending on what's happening here. All right, so far so good. Now, there is nothing in the game that actually says game over, right? So we actually have to go back into our code and check to see whether our lives are equal to 0. So there might be a whole block of code here that I've forgotten here, that when I receive death. No, I've got a bunch of this. I'm just missing a little bit of it. So let's go back to the frog again. And we're going to look for the part that says when I receive death, or when I die, when I receive dead. Here we go. And I've added most of the code here. There's just a little bit of code we didn't add for what happens when we die. So right above this set command, we're going to add another if statement. So let's just pull this loose. Let's grab an if statement. And the if statement is going to say if our lives are equal to 0. So let's go grab our operators. We'll grab an equal sign. And we'll say if lives are equal to 0, then we're going to broadcast a game over message. So let's go to our events. We'll broadcast a game over message. And then we'll stop all the other scripts in the sprite so that our frog can't work anymore. We don't want to stop all, because that will stop the game over screen from appearing. So we're just going to stop the frog's commands, other scripts in this sprite. So that was a stop command that I grabbed from the very bottom of control. It's called stop all, but you can change it to other stuff. All right, and one other little bit of code here, which is we need to tell it what to do if it wins here. So I'll go when I receive win. So let's go back to our events. When I receive win, then we're going to stop other scripts in the sprite again. So again, we're just going to stop the frog moving until that game over script appears. Okay, so our game should be complete. There might be a few bugs. Let's have a look at it right now. I don't think I'm going to play it to win, but I'm going to just try and lose right now as fast as I can. So there's one death. Oh, our lives aren't restarted here. Hold it. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, let's try that again. So our lives are 3. Oh, and our lives go down like crazy. So there's a little bit of code missing here that's making our lives go down too much. So the moment that we collide is when we have to teleport our frog back to that space, and it looks like it's sitting there for a minute. Oh, we haven't set the can die variable back. So we don't want the frog to actually go back to its start position because we want the animation to appear. What we have to do is change that can die variable back to 0 while we're doing all that stuff, right? So right now can die is if, oh, we haven't added the rest of the code back at the end that will turn can die back on again. And that was the part that I forgot. So we disconnected those 2 blocks. We have to add them back here again. Now let's see if that works better. Green flag. So let's try and get killed. Oh, when our lives still go down. Alright, so our lives are going down by a ton here. Let's have a quick look and see if we can troubleshoot this. If not, I might have to get offline and have a look at it really quickly. Okay, I'm going to stop the broadcast here right now, guys. And if anyone on Discord or on the or in the YouTube chat has any ideas on what's going on here, I'd be happy to hear your suggestions. So the problem is that he's not, after he dies, so can die has been set to 0 when he receives dead. So we shouldn't be able to get killed again. Then we change our life by -1. So this is where our lives go down. As long as can die is set to 0, that shouldn't happen. So let's go look at our variable. We'll go look at our can die variable and we'll see where it is right now in the game. So we got to move that out of the way. I can't do it while I'm in max screen mode, so let's do it this way. So right now can die is set to 1. Let's see what happens after I kill myself. It looks like can die is not staying at 0 after I die. No. So that worked. The can die was at 0. And yet it took multiple lives away. So something else is going on here. As far as I know, the only place we change our lives is right here under change lives by -1. The one thing that could be happening here is that there might be some other place I've changed the lives by -1 as well as here. Does anyone see any other place we change this variable called lives? If that's the case, then that would explain it. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go in and have a look at this and see if I can solve it later. Anyone? So Salima says the screen is blurry. I think that's probably because you're getting some kind of an internet disruption, Salima. It means that the stream is skipping frames and is degrading the performance of the screen so it might be a bunch of internet traffic happening over where you are in England. I think that it's getting close to mid-afternoon and people are kicking off of work and probably starting to surf the internet more, and maybe that's what's going on. I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, so I'm getting another request for a link. Let me save my file. So I can't really finish this broadcast until I clear up this bug. I'm going to try to do it online here with you guys if you have some suggestions. If not, I might go and do it later on Discord with some help, and I might get Jeffrey to help me with it as well. So there's something going on in the code here that's making those lives go down. I thought we had planned it all properly in the code here. So let's go back and look at the code again one more time. So the spot where we can die is, oh, where did that go? Here, when I receive this dead command. So can die gets set to 0. We're noticing it getting set to 0. We're changing our lives by -1. We're making our graphics appear. We're saying if lives are equal to 0 here, it'll get us into our game over. And our game over is jumping right ahead to negative numbers, so maybe we should say lives are less than 0 here. Broadcast game over, but it's ignoring that right now because our lives aren't equal to 0. Then we broadcast, and then we spawn our frog again. Maybe in that second, after we set can die to 1, something's hitting us before we can move our frog back to the new location. So maybe we should broadcast the spawn frog before we move to our new location and see if that works. So let's go back. Green flag. No, and it still goes down like crazy. That did not affect anything at all. So there's nothing in our frog collider here. Broadcast dead. That just sends the dead signal back. Alright guys, I am stumped here. Usually I can fix these problems in 5 or 10 minutes if I just look at the code, but doing it online here while the whole world is watching me is a little bit tense. So I'm going to do this afterwards. Tomorrow I will tell you how I solved it, and I will I'll go over some of the bugs and things like that we found with some of the other players as well. So I'm going to talk to some of my friends on Discord afterwards, and we're going to try and solve their problems as well and have a look at some of their code issues, and then we'll get that going. And then I will re-record the ending to this show with a fix. So tomorrow's 9 a.m. broadcast will have the fix in it at the very end, and then I'll also talk about it during the broadcast. So in the meantime, let's just do one more of those cool transitions. So I'm sorry guys, I could not get that working properly. I tried, but something's wrong in the code. I have a working version of the code here on my screen that on the other screen that has everything set up properly, and I've tested it and it works. So I probably put a block in the wrong place somewhere, and we'll see if we can figure that out. So those of you who are at home, so you can find the solution to this problem tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock by watching the very end of my short broadcast, or you can wait till 10 o'clock and I will tell you guys on my live broadcast as well. In the meantime, have a great day, and I will catch you guys tomorrow.